Welcome back to the last part of Namaste Obama. We're now going to attempt an overview of the three-day visit paid by the American president to India, which ended today at 2 o'clock. So, Hashni Heather, what's your journalistic overview? Would you say this visit was a success?
I think, Karan, I would call this visit a real coming out of the Indo-US relationship. Prime Minister Modi seems to have gone where none of his successors really did in terms of coming out with just how close India and the US see themselves. Some may object to how India and the US, how closely they get in the future, but actually this has been the coming out. And I mean the public display of personal chemistry as well as where the relationship is. I'd like to see a little more transparency on what they are calling the breakthrough on the nuclear deal, though.
How is it viewed in America, Professor Kaur? We know that in India, most people believe that it's a success. How's it seen in your continent?
It hasn't received much attention, but the New York Times carried a big story about the communique and the role of China. I'd say there are three things that are important. One is the fact that China was put on notice. Secondly, Pakistan was not publicly discussed, but we hope that privately it was discussed. And thirdly, we hope that neither Obama nor Modi believe that the personal relationship would translate easily into a strategic cooperation. That's going to be more difficult.
Now, I know, Srinivasan, that you have concerns about the strategic vision statement, the joint strategic vision statement issued about the Asia-Pacific and Ocean region. Why do you believe that this went one step too far?
Well, I think I have difficulties, in fact, some grave misgivings, both about the strategic vision statement and parts of the joint declaration. It seems to suggest a strong subtext which is anti-Chinese or looking to contain China. And it suggests convergence, total convergence almost between India and the United States in the Indian Ocean and Asia-Pacific regions, which I think does not exist. I think that there will be, it will not be helpful in regard to China, which is our second largest trade partner, with which we have boundary problems, and where we are members of two important organizations or institutions where China is the leading financial participant. That is the BRICS Development Bank and the Asian Investment Infrastructure Bank. I think that these will lead to difficulties, and I think it was perfectly avoidable from our point of view. Otherwise, I think the visit has been
let me stop you there. Let me stop you there. We'll come to the otherwise in a moment's time. To what extent do you agree with Srinivasan? Because the basic point he's making is that we've ended up creating problems for our relationship with China by this shared joint vision, where clearly China was a joint target.
Well, let me make a quick comment on this trip. I think this establishes a new benchmark in Indo-US relations. And in terms of the transactions that were carried out, I don't think any other summit can match this.
What about the China point?
Having said this, we are seeing a major deviation in India's foreign policy. And I think we need to note this. One, this government quite clearly does not believe in non-alignment and is prepared to make an alignment. Number two, it is getting rid of ambiguity as a part of foreign policy. If America is a friend, we say America is a friend. This is the same with China, same with Israel. We are being less ambiguous about relations. Third one is we are expanding our strategic outreach. Whereas we were concerned about our immediate neighborhood or Southeast Asia, the joint statement talks about South China Seas, talks about DPRK, talks about West Asia, Syria, Iraq, places that we didn't want to touch earlier.
We're now talking about them. Yeah. Let me bring you in, Kamal Sibal. You have a very interesting difference of opinion between the two foreign secretaries who've spoken so far. Srinivasan, who has deep concerns and misgivings about that joint vision statement and the manner in which China seems to have been picked upon almost as a target. You have Mr. Mann saying, welcoming, I think, the new direction in Indian foreign policy, the more openness, the bigger embrace of the relationship with America. Where do you stand between the two of them?
You know, two points I'd like to make. First, that Prime Minister Modi actually reached out to China in a very strong way right from the time he took over as Prime Minister. And it surprised me that he had done so in that manner. Clearly, In his view, he was going to make China a very important economic partner. Now, one might have doubts about that, but there was a clear message there. Now, with regard to the United States, we seem to have decided that on security issues and Asia-Pacific and Indian Ocean issues, we are going to be very clearly alongside the Americans and also other partners potentially like Japan and Australia. Now, how are we going to reconcile these two positions? The Prime Minister is going to China later in the year. Now, what discourse then he would make there? How would he explain the fact that he's building up such a strong strategic relationship in the Asia-Pacific region and the Indian Ocean with the United States? And the second point is that, in fact, we have very little role to play in Asia-Pacific in security terms. We can only play a role on the back of our teaming up with the United States and United States ally Japan and Australia. We don't have an independent role there. Therefore, is it in our interest to overextend ourselves? And the third point I'll make is
very quickly
that unfortunately China has invited this because it has been very insensitive to our interests, whether in the Indian Ocean or vis-a-vis Pakistan or our other neighborhood. And in fact, they have impelled us to make this choice in a way.
Let me put one of those many points made by the three foreign secretaries during. It's the point made by Mr. Mann Singh that you're seeing a new departure, a new direction, one that actually embraces American positions without any inhibition, one which stands up and says America is a friend and I'm going to say so. Do you welcome that if it's true?
First of all, I agree that it's true. And secondly, I think it's to be welcomed. Because this whole business of non-alignment and trying to placate multiple powers at the same time had evidently not served India well. China was adopting a continually more aggressive policy towards India. And I think this huge piece of political symbolism that you've seen, deliverables aside, I thought the deliverables were very mixed in this visit. But the sheer symbolism of the visit completely indicated what Mr. Mann Singh was saying, which is that there is a new alignment over here, especially in the Asia-Pacific, and it remains to be seen whether this pushes China and Pakistan closer together, or it induces China to now fall over itself, making nice with India, or as it seems likely, both.
Professor Kaur, it might not have seeped through to America that the view in India is that the Prime Minister has given Indian foreign policy a new direction. He's embraced the relationship with America far more warmly, openly, candidly than any of his predecessors. But when that does become common knowledge, and I'm assuming that the discussion we're having here is the accurate reflection of this visit, how will that impression go down in America? A quick answer.
I think that both the Republicans and the Democrats would welcome closer discussions with India about a whole range of issues, including our policy towards Pakistan. We both have a Pakistan problem. And the question of China's role in Afghanistan is also a big issue here. So I think that this provides an opportunity for America to discuss with India China's role in Afghanistan, the Indian and American role with Pakistan, and so forth.
Krishna Nivasan, you were the one who struck a note of difference, maybe even dissent. If it is the case, as both Mr. Mann Singh and Ajay Shukla are saying, that we have seen a new direction, a new embrace, a more candid acceptance of America and a recognition publicly of America as a friend, how would you respond to that new direction?
Well, I think that India seems to have decided to welcome the presence of a highly militarized superpower into Asia. I think this is probably going to be controversial and perhaps even not in our best interests. I think that some years ago, there were certain circles in America talking of a G2, which was the United States and China, to which we strongly objected. Now we seem to be thinking in terms of a much closer strategic relationship with the United States itself. This is very strange, a strange turnaround. And I think that there is a fundamental strategic difference between us and the United States in regard to our own neighborhood, whether it's Pakistan or Bangladesh or Afghanistan. So I think this is going to be a difficult relationship to live with.
Sahajni Haider, how will the Indian political parties, particularly Congress, and perhaps the left respond to this new direction? Give me a short answer. Will this be, in fact, a point of controversy for Mr. Modi?
I think over time, yes, Karan, because as Ambassador Srinivasan was saying over there, it's not going to help us in our relationship with China. This is going to be a troublesome year. Remember, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj is headed to Beijing next week. She's going to have to answer some questions about this particular visit there. I think also you are going to see a lot of political backlash when it comes to the nuclear deal, with parties feeling they were simply not taken on board, and they still haven't seen an accurate description of just what was agreed on.
Very quickly, because this is my last question, Mr. Mann Singh. Is this now a decisive Modi stamp on India's foreign policy? Not just earlier with Japan and then with Australia, but now very decisively in this critical relationship with America. As Mr. Modi said, this is my policy and I am totally in charge of it.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think what he's doing is another thing, that is welding foreign policy and domestic policy together, so that what he achieves here will give him credit in the other one. So that backlash that you expect will be met by Modi saying, I've got you more business, more exports, more investments. What are you grumbling about?
A lot, of course, depends upon the man he calls Barack, and whether Barack moves quickly to say Narendra and reciprocate with the same warmth.
Sure.
Because this relationship will only prove productive if Mr. Modi gets back what he's clearly investing in it. My thanks to both of you for coming to studio. My thanks also to my other guests for joining me. And there we end this particular Namaste Obama. The president has gone back. He's now on his way home from Saudi Arabia, I believe. And we end this particular episode there. From me, goodbye, good night.